And, Rick, can you just take that mouse and click, got it on the screen in front of you? Got it. There you go. Oh,
This mouse moves quickly.
I see a new technoid in that group.
Yeah. You got a great future with mouse control.
Yeah.
It's a new job.
Good afternoon. Today is the Nantucket Roads and Right of Ways Committee, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. We're meeting in a hybrid format as allowed by the state at 131 Pleasant Street trailer with the availability for folks to attend via Zoom. Because we are doing the hybrid format, the committee will conduct roll call on all votes. Zoom participants are asked to identify themselves. Your name will be noted on the screen under your Zoom connection. All Zoom participants are asked to mute their device unless addressing the committee. And since it's just the committee right now, it's great. It's not great, it's just us. It cuts down on some of the stuff. So to that end, the roll call of attendees. Alan Reinhardt. Here. Lee Saperstein.
Here.
Rick Atherton.
Here.
Bill Smith. Here. Nelson Eldridge.
Yeah.
Ed Gillum.
Here.
Rob Rainey.
Here.
Ken Bogren.
He's muted. He tried to-
Ken, we didn't hear you, but it doesn't look like you're muted. Now you're muted.
Yeah, I have a problem with the, hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We do.
All right, and Bill Gruder, chair. Thank you. Public comments on items not on the agenda. Because we don't have anybody that's not on the committee. I don't see any. We'll move on.
Unless Ken's got any.
You got anything, Ken?
No, just on item 3.
Okay. Move on to approval of the minutes of October 18th, 2022. Does anybody have any changes or corrections or tweaks for the esteemed secretary?
I think Ken Bogran had one minor change, but did you get that, Ken? Okay.
Anyone else? No? Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Alan, seconded by Snooki. Roll call. Alan Reinhardt.
Aye.
Lee Saperstein.
Aye.
Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Bill Smith.
Aye.
Snooki Eldridge.
Aye.
Ed Gillum.
Aye.
Rob Rainey.
Abstain. I wasn't there, so I abstain.
Thank you. And chair says aye. Item number 3 on the agenda. Possible takings of Franklin Street and Stone Alley.
I'll be happy to discuss.
Okay, great. So before we get to that, to give us more time for someone who's actually here, Ginger Rogers, Ginger Andrews has a conflict with the HTC meeting, and so she's unable to attend. She has submitted a letter for the board, and also I have reached out to David,
Bill, she submitted a letter to him.
to us, to the Roads and Right of Way, which I will hand out. And also I've reached out to David Gray because there, when I went on the GIS, I noticed there is a sewer line down Stone Alley. And so he's researching, he's going to get back with some information about that. So Ginger stopped by to drop this letter off, and I told her I thought that we'd probably touch on this, but it would end up getting rolled over to another meeting that she didn't have a conflict, so she could be there in person. But knowing that Ken's got a bunch of meetings to have to go to. If you'd like to give his input, or if you'd want to defer till, we do this. every
No,
month.
can you read Ginger's letter?
Yeah, I was going to do that. I'm gonna pass this out also since it's copies. We'll see.
You don't have this electronically, do you?
No, I will,
Stone Alley, refresh my memory.
A little walkway from Orange,
Across from the
from Orange down to
Union.
Union,
Down to Union.
at about number 12 Orange Street.
Copperstone.
And it's a roadway down to Ginger's house and then a walking path almost entirely obscured by ivy.
if you're on Union Street, it's just before you get to the Union Street end, there's a left that goes up the hill. And it's hard to see from Union Street because it's so grown in. It used to be how you got to the Indian Trail years ago. So I will get this from Ginger electronically, please, so you don't have to.
Otherwise, I stand it.
To the Roads and Ways Committee. I understand you plan to discuss Stone Alley today. But as I plan to attend the HTC meeting that happens at the same time, I thought I'd write. I now live at 1 Stone Alley and grew up in 3 Stone Alley until a family moved to UMA Field Station for my father's job. Although retaining separate utilities, the address is now lumped as 1 Stone Alley for town taxes. It was one of the earliest buildings surveyed by the Historic American Building Survey, HABS, in the 1970s. It dates from 1720, when Solomon Gardner was given permission to set up his homestead in its current location. It is an 18th century 2-family house with a clay mortared central chimney containing 9 flues. 1 Stone Alley has 6 fireplaces, and so presumably the other 3 were originally used by 3 Stone Alley. Some consultants have suggested the house or parts of it may have been moved from the original settlement of Sherburne. It predates the excavation of Quinity Bank. Fran Cartoonan located a reference to Stone Alley being opened in 1803. After the Great Fire of 1846, the Sanborn maps consistently show Stone Alley substantially in its current form. 2 possible exceptions: the sidewalk access to Eliza Codd's cottage, a barn converted circa 1910 at 2 Stone Alley, and more recently, the granite and schist curbing was removed and reused for a planting of hydrangeas, creating a parking area for 12 Orange Street next to the side of the house. While 12 Orange was rented to the ex-gallery, police are still ticketing cars parked in that spot. Stone Alley currently contains town water lines and 3 meters serving 1, 2, and 3 Stone Alleys. Our sewer lines connect to the main in the alley, running down to Union Street. The Union Street Inn was originally connected to the Stone Alley sewer, but after a bad blockage under Union Street, which caused raw sewage to flow out of their washing machines, they made a new connection to the Union Street line. There are 2 utility poles within the layout of the alley. 1 pole located next to the retaining wall of 10 Orange Street carries electric, phone, and cable wires from Orange Street down to 2 and 3 Stone Alley. 1 Stone Alley receives electricity and cable up from Union Street via a pole located at the lower bend of the alley. Cat Alley at right angle was supposedly taken for a utility corridor, but was apparently never used. The old gas lines in the alley appear to have been abandoned. Overhead fire alarms for the old call boxes have been removed with a bit of help from my tree branches, I'm sorry to say. The lower portion of the alley is constricted by a tree that grew up through my electrical service on one side And on the south side by the formerly vertical fence constructed at 9 Union Street, owners until 1970. The top of the fence was pushed over the path during the recent renovations of 9 Union Street, although its feet are still in their 1970 location. Recent plantings on the south side removed a sizable number of rocks. The cobbles in the center are coming unzipped due to water runoff. Sadly, undeniably risky, but still used and enjoyed by the public as a cut through nevertheless. Sincerely, Ginger Andrews, and this was dated 11/15/22. And Ken, I will send you as well as our board members this soft copy when I get it from Ginger.
Super, thank you. Let me comment on, there are two issues that we're looking at with respect to Stone Alley. The first one is an issue relative to encroachments by the person who lives at the base of Stone Alley. If you're on Union Street looking up, it's on the left-hand side. He has a couple of garbage bins there, and he has a number of plantings that he's put there, which are in fact on the sidewalk. So either sometime today or more likely tomorrow, a letter will be going out to him for to remove those encroachments because they're not allowed to be on the sidewalk. But more importantly, he has also blocked access to his next neighbor for the fuel truck to be able to back up Stone Alley and to deliver fuel to his house. So that needs to be left open, and that is going to be addressed. With respect to the overall situation as to whether or not.
Ken, could you tell us what house number are you referring to?
Again, Haley has that. It's when you're looking at, when you're on Union Street, it's the house exactly on the left-hand corner
Okay,
of Stone Alley. Okay.
I got it.
Yep. So the second issue that we're looking at is that at this point in time, the town has really no ability whatsoever to be able to maintain that because of the skill sets required and because of issues and concerns with respect to potential liability. So we're taking a look at coming to you with a recommendation as to whether or not we should leave it private and create a responsibility in the abutting owners to make sure that it stays open and that there is access left for people to be able to travel up and down it because of the fact that it is a public way. So we don't have a recommendation at this point in time. Andrew Vorse and I have been working on this for at least 2 years and trying to come up with an easy solution. And as you can see, there is no easy solution to it. So that's the report where it is. The fact is that we're going to make sure that the encroachments that we're aware of right now that are in fact affecting access are in fact addressed so that in fact the people who need to be able to use it, either to walk up the sidewalk or to be able to take a delivery of the fuel is done. And then we will come forward with some sort of recommendation as a long-term basis for what to do with Stone Alley. But my guess, it will not be one that is of a taking.
Rick?
Ken, just a question. It sounds like it's almost, the idea is to make it like a homeowner, not formally perhaps, but is the idea that the people who abut the alley would come up with the resources to maintain the steps?
Well, the fact is that Rick, my understanding is that because it's a private road, they own to the middle of Stone Alley. Okay, so they have a vested interest in it in terms of an economic interest in the property. They should then also have an equal responsibility with respect to maintaining it and provide that it is accessible to all of the people that utilize it in one way or another. That's the philosophical approach, Rick.
Well, it sounds like you're confirming sort of the question is that ultimately part of the resolution, wherever we end up, someone accepts that responsibility, whether it's the town or the neighbors.
That's correct. It has to be on one part or the other. And at this point in time, I have real great trouble recommending that the town take on the responsibility. Because first of all, it has no capability of taking on the responsibility. And secondly, it opens up to us to exposures, which we don't have to have if in fact the neighbors take on the responsibility of maintaining the property.
Lee,
Ken, I'll ask a question. Can the portions of the alley be severed? That is to say, the drivable part be one element that could potentially be taken and the walking path be left private.
That's, that's something that you've raised a good point. It needs to be looked at, and that needs to be part of the solution as to how we solve it.
Ed, and then Phil.
I was actually going to ask a very similar question to what Lee has asked, but that's been taken care of. But the secondary part of that was, if the neighbors take it on as a private way, would they be also taking on the liability that might be incurred with it?
Well, it's their property.
Right, I understand, but
Okay.
the neighbors, Ginger might have a lot to say about that, that's why.
Well, yeah, understood. But the fact of the matter is that they have the right to go to the middle of the alley right now.
Right.
The abutters on each side. Okay, so to the extent that liability may already exist without, in fact, it may already be there, Ed.
Right, yeah.
So I'm gonna put up for Phil Road.
Hmm.
Just so we can see,
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
okay, Phil,
What is Ginger's position on this? In other words, she just tells us the background and the history, but what is she asking?
it's my understanding and I'm sure, if she were here, she would be more than happy to share this. Historically, I guess the last couple of years, the entrance to Orange Street, that you can see where Orange and Stone Alley meet, I believe it's number 12 Orange, has been doing some work there and actually parking vehicles or whatever and blocking Stone Alley off and using that as their private parking lot. And so she can't get access down to her house. And then the reason she's not here, as I understand it tonight, is that at 2 Stone Alley,
Right.
there's HTC application that's been dragging on for a bit. And from what she told me, when she last looked at the submittal on number 2 Stone Alley, it appeared that at least previously, that the modifications they were going to do to their property were actually, if not to their half of the center, or it was encroaching or whatever. So that's why she thought she needed to be there tonight to find out what their actual process was.
So I guess a couple of things. So first of all, this contractor's parking there, that's not something we get involved in.
That wasn't contract with parking. Number 12 has been using it as a,
Okay, I mean, does the Roads and Right of Way Committee get involved with that, or is that the town, with the police calling the?
good question, and it may very well then, if they got involved, we don't know if it's private, public, or whatever, so I think we sort of get dragged into it, just like.
So I guess just for clarity though, our role would be to make them opine on the fact that should this remain private or should we recommend it being public? Is that correct?
I think
Yes.
that's what we started all this to begin with, yeah.
Yeah.
Ed?
So several things in response to Phil. As a private way, the police have no authority in there. It now then becomes something for a civil matter. If the cars block Ginger from her own home, then there is a tort situation of some sort.
Might be trespass as well.
Yeah.
The, well, a little history, which Ginger obviously added in here, a lot of it was, he did mention that number 12 was the X gallery at one point. And behind number 12, there was actually parking at one time, whether it was allowed or not. And actually, they used to block the way when they had gallery openings and this kind of thing. And that's what she was talking about, the police ticketing. Another thing though, and it is correct that 2 is at HCC for an addition and renovation tonight. The same owner owns 12 as owns 2. So 12 Orange Street is also owned by, 2 is also owned by the same owner, 12.
Just to follow up to that, does parking occur on two? Aside from the same owner issue, but
It-
it almost looks like there's a driveway.
There is area for parking. I don't know what it actually is, the situation with the parking, because there is some elevation there. It drops off on the bottom side of that second to the right dark spot. It looks like parking.
And Ed, do we know offhand when 12 acquired two? Is that recent or is that a long time ago?
It's been a while, but it's not. It's more recent than 12, let's put it that way, but I can't
Yeah.
tell you, I don't know the exact date.
Yeah,
It's,
we might be able to do that in
it's
a minute.
I was
Pre-
just curious whether it's sort of because that's
you
they're
could go
sort
on the
of
property.
buying off the access issues or what are they doing?
Right. And number 9 is actually, from a historical point of view, number 9 is now a new owner, or relatively new owner at number 9. The former owner of number 9, she came before our board once before, back when we started the Stone Alley discussion, as you'll recall. Crosby was her last name, but now she has sold that property to someone else in the last couple of years.
It looks like 2, according to the GIS, still hasn't been updated because it still shows 2012.
No, that's when 2 was transferred in 2012, because the LLC is the one that owns 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's how long.
That's what, so 10 years ago. Right. And I think there was some encroachment issues with the way they re-landscaped or something. I don't know the total history about the encroachment and the plantings and this, that, the other.
I'll just, this is not going into any notes, but from an historical point of view, Doris Beer, was a very prolific painter and etcher of scenes, had a scene from Stone Alley up to the church where you could see the spire of the church. You cannot reproduce that view today because there's a tree in the way.
So did the photographer that, what's his name, the very famous photographer, used to colorize the postcards.
Yeah.
He had a picture of postcards of it actually at one time as well. I think one of them was shown in one of our meetings or a slide or something.
The Stone Alley down at the Union Street end. Although the steps down to Union Street were more narrow than the alley itself, obviously. Those steps were pretty wide. You could easily have, east-west traffic without having to step aside to let somebody up. It's
They're about
not
5 feet.
that much,
It's
yeah.
about 5 feet there, I think.
Well, I'm going way back when Hector was a pup.
Oh. Hector was
He grew up in the neighborhood.
Hector was a.
So but anyhow, it's heavily used, and chatting with some police officers the last couple of years, because the end down at Union Street, the steps area, because it has not had much vegetation control, has become a nuisance haven for nighttime get-togethers. And so when we did afford to have nighttime patrol officers, they would have to make rounds through there quite a bit.
Ah,
What's the significance of the blue line versus the yellow line?
the sewer line.
Sewer and utility.
Can you drive that entire thing or?
No.
No.
we can cut down to
Actually, it's a water main line. It's a blue line.
right, sort of right by.
Right about there.
Yeah, because there's parking for that house
So
there.
then you gotta turn around. I mean, it's-
Yeah.
We're gonna
Turn in there.
driveway.
And
Wow.
and then right here is the fence line, and then there's steps that start down here, down into the industry.
And toward Orange Street, that line behind 9 was the fence that she was talking about got pushed over, I think it's in Ginger's letter.
So we can expect that when Ginger comes to our meeting, she is going to ask that we consider making it a town, taking it as a town property.
My guess would be,
From a liability point, I think, yeah.
That was our original proposal to the select board to take it out. We put that on our,
Yeah,
How long ago was that?
Oh, God.
Seems like forever.
What did the select board say?
Yeah,
Pre-COVID.
went to the select board.
Or what did they say?
They have not responded formally to us, but
Right,
we have
exactly.
understood. And I think Ken would reinforce that they've discussed it amongst themselves and I think asked Ken to look into it.
That's what's happening now for 2 years.
That's not making a decision.
No,
Just one follow-up. How did we pass the request or recommendation to the select board? Was it by memo or a written document or?
yeah, I'll answer Rick in just a minute. Phil, you asked the status of recommendation.
Right.
And from there,
And when?
I will go to, Rick, we have a spreadsheet that we continue to upgrade. At one time, it had 8 or 10 ways on it. Several have been taken, several, Amelia, Boulevard and so forth have been taken and went off the list. Others, it became clear, was none of our business, and what's left is Wynn Street, Stone Alley, Franklin, which is coming up, and there's 4 on it. And every time the list was amended, it was submitted.
By email,
Yeah.
an Adobe document or an Excel spreadsheet document? So did it have a cover note? I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
It said, "Dear Selectmen, the roads and right-of-way recommendations are on this attached document. We'd love to hear back from you," or something. What did we say?
Alan,
Ken, have you seen anything in your research about correspondence about Stone Alley,
Well, we started the ball rolling.
previous
with a letter.
correspondence?
I wasn't going back and looking for that. I was looking to see about finding a solution to what we should be recommending in terms of what to do. So the answer is I haven't done that research.
It's in our record somewhere. We did do it at one time.
I would like to see what our previous recommendation was and the date of it before we make another recommendation.
I mean, I'm familiar with the spreadsheet, so I'll move you there.
Yeah.
And we've circulated it periodically to the members of the committee, presumably each time it's been updated.
Right.
And so if you keep them, they're all sitting on your computer someplace. But the method of communication is, I think, is an important one. It really shares what our intentions were in writing. You know, it's sort of like it would resuscitate that we had a motion
And what our thinking was.
and, yeah.
And, you know, and so I guess my only point is that we obviously were thinking a certain way at that time. And I think before we change what we're thinking, we ought to see
Review
what we were thinking.
But
Right, there would be discussion in the minutes when we did discuss this. The basic issue here is right of way.
yeah,
Public
We
use.
the concern was with all the encroachments and blocking and so on, that it is a used public way, and you cannot block a public way, as I understand it.
It's sort of
I'm
like
sorry,
Swan
private,
Road.
private way. You cannot block, even though it's a private way, you cannot block it, you cannot prevent people from going over a private way. So that was the issue, that was the threat. Because it is used so much, that's how it ended up on our cake.
And we had to get it surveyed. We weren't really sure where the exact survey, especially at the bottom in particular.
And we understand that the town, by taking, assumes responsibility for the maintenance, and I think that's what the jam is here, is because the town, it is tricky to maintain because it's cobblestone, it's on the hill, there's liability issues and that sort of thing.
It's probably even more of a burden because it hasn't been maintained for so long.
yeah.
It's you gotta go in and fix something. It's not just maintaining it, so.
And maybe to state the obvious, some neighbors may prefer that it not be open for public access.
Yeah, exactly. That was,
The only information we have on that, Rick, if you recall, is that the people who did attempt, they're no longer relevant because they don't own the house, but they were in favor
Yeah.
of it becoming public and being maintained.
Well, that's good to hear.
The fuel deliveries. Oil, gas, those guys are gonna get those trucks in. Yeah.
And you got the Union Street Inn right next door as well, which is obviously,
Take a break for a second here and welcome Stephen from DPW. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, hello, I'm sorry I'm late. I had a few things to close out today.
That's okay, we're probably discussing something that would add work to your group, so. So, but this is gonna continue on, so.
So Steve, sometime in the next month, take a little walk up and down Stone Alley. It's very historic.
And don't trip when you do it.
there is.
That, now Stone Alley is that off street off of Orange, I think?
Yes,
It connects Orange to Union.
Yes. Cobblestones?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
In part.
Tripping not
And
allowed.
bits of brick,
Just make sure your staff knows that you're going out there in case you don't come back.
a lot of ivy.
Stop at Fire
No,
station.
it's not that bad.
Bring in ambulance.
Yeah, all right.
and
All right,
and beer bottles for people to
I'm
see.
gonna be on
So-
CSI where they're saying they have video evidence of me walking down Stone. They warned him and he still went. Yeah.
So, I believe we're at a point where, we might want to, move on, but with the caveat that, we are gonna try to see if you can see something that was sent.
Oh, yeah. I can think.
And, if anybody has some, old minutes or at least.
No, I've got-
You got 'em? Okay. And, we'll roll this over, to the next meeting. Is that everyone's wish?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Not particularly Ginger can be here.
right. All right, so,
Franklin Street.
yeah, so let's move on to, we'll take that by consent, if that's what we'll do. The next order of, discussion is Franklin Street. And, we asked the cemetery commission, since they were, interested in this, as well as some abutters that have reached out. Unfortunately, the abutters, have, some other, items on their plate at the other end of the street, so they have not, been able to devote much time, to this item, but, they're following it closely. So that being said, I believe we have a representative of the cemetery commission here.
We do, indeed. The main reason for this recommendation for the taking of Franklin Street. Well, there are two basic reasons. First of all, the town did maintain it, thinking that it was a public way for years. And then, I guess one of the neighbors said, wait a minute, and yeah, they never took it. So it's a private way, according to the town, so it's not maintained. The problem for the cemetery commission is that the only parking spaces for the two cemeteries, Old North and New North, on either side of New Lane, two of the largest town cemeteries, a lot of history and all that sort of thing, there's no parking. The only parking that's in that whole area are 4 or possibly 5 spaces at the top
Just me.
of, it's the top of the street, top of Franklin Avenue. We should go around from New Lane. And the problem is that there have been, the same vehicles have been parked there all winter, all summer. And, yeah. And that's the problem because of the fact that there is no real parking access anywhere near that.
And just for the record, the town is an abutting owner to Franklin Street. Because of New North Cemetery.
Right.
Would Ken be able to put that up on the screen?
I'll go get it. Well, you guys are talking.
Would we be owners on both sides?
No, there's parking really just on the cemetery side. And as I say, you can get maybe 5 if they're reasonably parked vehicles.
And there's a steps up into to the
Yeah,
New North Cemetery.
And,
along with Franklin Street.
and I met with Alan earlier today and I explained to Alan There are some issues from the town's point of view that I cannot discuss at this point in time. But at this point in time, the town does not want to go forward until those issues can get resolved and do a taking of this particular street.
Ken, I'm going to report in the minutes that there are confidential issues which, if and when resolved, may lead to a decision about taking.
That's correct. You know, the thing is that there are a number of things that are convoluted. So until they can get resolved, it's not something that the town wants to sort of move forward with respect to the taking, because we think that that would be disadvantageous to the town at this point.
So I've now shared the screen. That's Franklin Street. The center there. And you can see that it has utilities, including sewer, running down there. And Ed,
No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't raising my hand, so I'm sorry. I was looking because
I didn't see a lip moving.
I think I know a little bit of what
One
might
of
be happening
the
here.
other members of the cemetery commission has relatives who live on Franklin Street. And continues to remind us in the cemetery commission that we need to do something.
Hmm.
So that's it.
Town might be going for
Such
housing.
as it is.
Well, I think I hear another motion to postpone.
So by
Oh,
consensus.
Yes, a motion to postpone. But when you see the spreadsheet, you'll find that Franklin is on it. And that means that the standing recommendation is for the town to take it.
Yeah.
Just one thing, Ken, I appreciate your comments. It sounded like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that if these issues were resolved, the town might be receptive to going forward. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just
You're putting more words in my mouth than I said.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Gotcha. Just to be clear.
If Lee, if you could send that short list out, or updated list.
It'll probably go in the minutes.
Well, what I'm thinking is, what I would like to do is tweak it the way that I sent out and it was included in the packet, our project list. And so there'll be like a little status section of each of the ones. So we can note that, you know, it's referred to whomever or the, you know, legal issues or whatever. And it'll be as of this date.
Okay.
So that we go forward, we can look back at it. That,
No. Again, sorry. I'm in an
I bet you
auction.
got a lot.
I'm in an auction buying things by accident. Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
so where are the parking? Where's this parking that these?
Right where you see the word Franklin Street.
Yeah, up at the top of the street.
Yeah, see the other, see the cursor going back and forth?
A little bit for right there, right around Franklin Street. Yeah, right around there.
And what's the significance of those lots that are in green? Is that relevant to us? Or
That's just the
And the steps are about where the F is.
Franklin
Up
address.
into they rise up into the cemetery.
it's the legend and what I selected as far as an overlay.
Yeah, those are all Franklin Street addresses.
Except for 36, which is on North Liberty.
So it sounds like progress. Or at least
They work on,
they're talking about it, so.
So. All right, so by consensus, we'll move this along and we'll put it back on a future agenda when we have something to report or somebody requests it. Is that okay?
Just a question. You mentioned Wynn Street as another one that is sort of being considered.
Right.
And I remember when I first came on the committee, it was being discussed.
Yes.
What more needs to be discussed?
Well, it's with Wynn Street, part of the problem is that the dirt part of it that goes from Maya Comet Road halfway down to where Upper Vestal comes in.
That's the public part.
That's the public part. The paved part is private. That belongs to the homeowners, whatever that. And the owner of, or I guess the owner of the title to the road had offered it to the town. This was several years ago under a former DPW administrator. And she decided that the town wasn't sure about the construction or whatever. And so they never ended up taking that part of it. With one of the things that the former DPW director said is that there is some, at that point, there was a plan to put a sewer line or something under Wind Street. There was some sort of connection that they wanted to make, in which case they would need to have the private section. That never happened. So the issue is getting mainly pedestrians from one bike path to the other, from the Maya Comet Road bike path over to the Matticat Road bike path.
I have never seen a pedestrian anywhere on that.
No, 'cause
Well, that's the problem, because there's no bike path.
You just have to look on the bushes.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Alan's absolutely right. It's a Milk Street, Hammock Pond Road path to the Matticat Road path. And you don't see them on Wind Street because they're on the road on Prospect and Quaker.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that sort of exacerbated the situation is the section along the cemetery. Where it's on our list, we're talking about trying to get a sidewalk in there. I think that is fast approach the never to happen designation, because they found that the cemetery inhabitants actually might be resting partway into the roadway.
They are.
Grave sites are too close to the road.
Yeah, and so to get any width in there to put a sidewalk in is gonna be extremely problematic. And so if that's the case, then really, I would think that we, as a committee, need to take that off, we need a sidewalk there. Thing, because it's gonna put more pressure.
We had never asked for one alongside the cemetery.
Right.
The sidewalk that we asked for terminates at Upper Vesta.
And that was, there is presumably enough room in the roadway on Quaker Road at that point. To do a sidewalk on that side before you get to the cemetery. But then again, it's Upper Vestal to Wind Street out to the bike path.
So Wind Street plays a part in any scenario for getting around.
That's what I was getting at, right?
Yeah.
In Wind Street, the dirt part, for instance, actually, the bike path was a key thing. Come
Right.
through there perhaps as a connector, but also there's a family that owns quite a lot of land off of Wind Street right there. The
Yes,
Snell family,
exactly.
and there was some discussion at one time of perhaps the same way as Pleasant Street, creating, an easement or something on their land to get something on that type for the bike path or whatever in the future, because they own some very developable land up on the hill toward the, toward where you have the observatory.
Ken, is Wind Street on your radar?
Nope, it was not on my radar at all.
We didn't, I don't think we included it in that letter, but you might want
Yes,
to
we
find
did.
it. Oh, we did?
Yeah, it was included in one of the.
Discussing.
It was discussed, I know.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe it should be, but I think that's an important street.
Well, we didn't pursue it because we were sort of waiting to hear from the DPW whether or not they were ever gonna put a sewer line or something through there, which would require, that taking, so.
And just to ask Stephen, just correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe part of the DPW looked at a dirt road, being sure, well, not dirt road, but taking the part of Wind Street that is paved. Concern is what was the construction of that? But there are ways that the DPW does test borings or whatever to find out what the roadbed is, what the substructure is or whatever, and if it's a total rebuild or it can be just taken over or whatever, is that correct?
No, I'm sorry, I can't verify that. The most that we've discussed it, to
I
my,
mean, I don't mean in this case, I'm just talking about in general is. What do you do in a situation to take over a private road that's been paved? To have it become a public road?
well, that's something that we're trying to address now. We don't, we basically, we've had times where we've been told that a road is public after the fact without knowing that we were approaching the acquisition of a road. And that's something that Mo and I have discussed with Libby, that we want to be part of the acquisition process so we can make an assessment. And that has been hit or miss basically. But we've had discussions with Rob when he was here, Mo and I, about the possibility of creating some type of path in order to alleviate the stress on Quaker. So, but it never went past a conversation and a walkthrough. But I'm willing to open that back up again and discuss with David Gray to see if he still has something on the back burner for the sewer. Because basically we would do our test, see what we're getting into as far as sampling, see what kind of soils we're dealing with, see if we need to do any drainage, if we put asphalt down there, because that will affect the runoff profile. And but before we put any hard road, I mean, before we do any takings, or is it already hard road? Let me see.
Bill, you're talking about the hard road that's there in the development, and I think he's thinking about the dirt part of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve, is that a question?
Yeah, I think we because I believe that we were talking, there's like half and half on that road, or am I thinking about the wrong road?
No, you got it right. The dirt part going from
Public bond.
Matic.
Milk Street Extension.
Yeah, Milk Street
Right.
Extension. Halfway to Upper Vestal Street is the public road, the dirt part of it. The
Yeah.
paved part, and by the way, it's paved with Belgian bar. And at the time we were discussing this among this committee, we had an engineer who was, I think it was Art Gasparo, actually, who had supervised the construction of that road. He claimed that it was better than any town road. I mean, was what his comment was.
Did you see that, Mo? I'm sharing the screen here now.
I can see that. And I'm looking at my complete streets diagram at the same time. Yeah, with the development of those properties. Yeah, let me talk to Mark Willett and David Gray and get back to you gentlemen about possibilities there, because I believe we've talked about different types of work on Wind Street, but it's been so long ago. That was like the first or second year I was here back in 18 or 19. So after that, we kind of just fell off our radar completely as far as deputies and below, maybe directors.
Now, that map, and Bill, you might just want to raise it a little bit. That map does show sewer in the public portion.
In the private one. The public
Um,
one? Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Well, I'm talking only the public portion.
Yeah,
Raise it
Yeah,
up
so-
or shrink.
the other one.
Now that you're going down. Oh,
So it shows an existing sewer
There you go.
line, but
It does.
basically, let me see my breakdown. Let me see layers.
Sewer, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the blue, I see.
No, the
Right
sewer.
here.
Just the
Blue-
yellow.
The blue's
The blue,
water
right.
and sewer is the
So
yellow.
I don't know if that's pre-existing and he wanted to expand
That's
on
private
it.
area, right?
That's the private with
Yeah,
the water.
above
in it.
Van Vestal.
Looks like there's no water in the road in the public road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what we're looking at?
make sure that,
Yeah, let me confirm the infrastructure with David and Mark. and then get back to you, because it could be pre-existing already that they have something there. I mean, there's a lot of residential. There are a lot of residents there. But I think there was supposed to be some type of expansion.
Can't believe there's not town water.
So, the yellow is gravity
Yes, the blues water.
and the flow direction is by the arrow. According to the legend.
It looks like there's no water in the public portion of Wynn,
Yeah.
according to this map. That's kind of interesting. There's houses, I think, have
I
town
know
water.
there's water up in the piece across.
'Cause 44, I think, is on town water.
Guys, this is Ken. I'm going to really leave because I don't have anything to contribute on the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
We started.
Are we through looking at this,
Yeah.
I think Wynn Street is actually a critical street, actually, to some degree. More so than, well, the other ones are critical for other reasons, but. But Wynn, I think for future of Nantucket, I think that's a very critical access road. there.
Lightning up on Quaker Road.
Well, there and this property you're seeing with the green around it down there,
Yeah.
there's a lot of development potential and eventually partially part of it will be developed.
Yeah.
So. You know,
as soon as I can get rid of the shed.
and it's a good cut through, even if it's not a connector up to the.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't connect all the way on the bike path side, all the way to the other, at least there's that lateral connection.
Well, there were many discussions had about Wynn Street and avoiding the loop onto Prospect that would require some rearrangement of Saratoga.
Saratoga, right?
Mount Vernon and
Because of the one way.
Saratoga, so there's a fairly linear connection
Right,
for another meeting and another day.
right.
So we have a consensus that, we'll, hold off on, we'll put Wynn Street back on, bring back as necessary when we get some info to put it on,
Yes, I think Steve's comment about
Yeah.
consulting on infrastructure means that at some point it should come back.
Yes,
Not till he can report.
and the portion of Wynn Street south of Vestal, I know that, yeah. I'll talk to Patrick and Andrew about that. That's something I do recall too, about that, the possible development down there, so. I need to get up to speed on that.
It's in pretty bad shape with that. Is that front end loader still sitting down in there?
Yes.
So that house is yet to be built.
Okay. Our chair is consulting with the chair of the next door committee.
So who's over that, Shad? No,
And that was Peter.
Shad.
So yes.
no, so it was Peter.
No, it's Shad.
That's Shad.
Yeah,
They meeting now.
yeah, because remember we had a conflict last time that came in there, so.
Right.
Well, the house to get out of it.
Bill, you come chair the meeting and I'll put a chair in.
I'll visit
so
here.
it's probably, let the, group in the other room know about locking the building up.
Now we have blocked our fire.
So next on our agenda is.
Oh, there it is.
Next on the agenda is reviewing public way monument locations ready to install. So when we last met, we talked about putting tickets in and scheduling or whatever. So I sent a message to Stephen, we chatted back and forth with a couple of emails. And I sent him pictures of the two types of monuments, the uprights and the flush mount. Alan went tracing through two fairgrounds, and I went after him just to make sure that he didn't have too much hot chocolate and miss something. Findings are there's 8 plus or minus one uprights and 0 flush mounts that we can find. But I sent pictures of both of those to Stephen, and he was gonna look into it. First to see if he could find any, and then also what it would be involved to put these in. And I think once we get squared away with that, we would then move ahead and pick locations to put tickets in to put some in.
No, is it my understanding, I believe, that there's a camera on that building at one point, but the building is under police department kind of
Right.
purview.
I checked, I went over the, in fact, it was right after our last meeting. And I went over just to check the flush monuments and do a count and so on. I've been over there generally every 6 months or so to take a look, make sure they're there and all that sort of thing. So when I went over after the last meeting, the upright posts were there. Those are the heavy ones.
They're heavy.
Those are the-
When you need a front end loader.
Yeah, exactly. But the flush monuments, which were, I believe, 12, roughly 12 by 12, were gone. So
Sidewalk path, it sounds like to me.
well, so I went over to DBW, talked with Ray Sylvia,
Yeah,
who's in the sign department, who used to, be over there. And he was the one who said that particular building, that particular area, which is behind the two fairgrounds, was under the jurisdiction of the police department. He said that he thought that there was a camera and that Charlie Gibson would be the one who would know whether or not that, what might have happened to them.
Is that where his big truck is? Didn't he have the rescue truck in that building at some point? But anyway, maybe I'm dreaming.
Well, this is sort of a shack that's behind the
Oh, a
building.
shack that's behind.
This
the
is the
Yeah,
left
that's
field.
behind the building.
I'm thinking this is building.
Yeah. And I have, every time I was in there to check, I would photograph them and just to make sure that, so I could count, how many were there. And, as I say, it had been probably at least 6 months since I checked them before I went over there this time. And the flush monuments are gone. So, I mentioned, I talked with Steve the other day when I was at DPW. And Steve, you were going to check with Charlie Gibson to see if he had any knowledge about those monuments, the flush monuments.
yes, and I haven't made good on that yet. I was out yesterday and I had back to back today.
Yeah.
But I did ask, I did speak to Ray as well, and I asked him to check for me. And of course, we overtasked him as well, so he didn't make it out to Charlie, but I'll be reaching out to him this week. And also I want to talk to the artisan who put the originals together to see, what he's doing now, what it would take for more,
Is that Neil Patterson?
They were donated to Roads and Right of Way Committee.
By,
Both the uprights and the flush
was that
monuments
Neil that did that?
by Neil Patterson. He
Right.
donated them because he was supporting the programs. So,
Did that also include the carving off?
yeah, I included the upright ones, I'll say public way. In
Right.
fact, there were 2 of them that said public footpath
Right.
that we were gonna put up at the
Baxter
hill
Road.
in Wisconsin,
Yeah,
The hill.
Baxter Road.
right. Bluff path.
So those are still there. All the upright ones are there, but the 6 or 7 flush monuments have disappeared. So I can't imagine who would have taken them or what they would be, used for.
Stepping stones up to someone's front
Right, they're
porch.
right in my garden.
I don't know.
I want to put one of the upright ones
Well, we-
against Linda Holland's fence.
Yeah.
Well, we need to find those.
So anyway, that's the status of the monuments themselves is, we're assuming that there is a camera or something back there that maybe if they can go through it or whatever, we might find out where they went.
Sounds like the makings of a naked mirror story to me.
County systems erase after 30 days.
Yeah, I know.
I was about to ask
Anyway,
about
maybe
how,
tell-
yeah, I was gonna ask, when was the last, date that we verified that they had the flush monuments there, so we could give them a starting point, yeah.
I'm estimating, it was sometime last winter, so it would have been maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago. I'll see if I can find the photograph, because as I say, I always take a photograph, and the photo would have a date on it, so.
Perfect, good deal.
I'll check that and see if I can.
But I'll put that request, I'll put that request in via email right now, and just to get things going, so he can call me and ask me what the hell am I asking him about.
Ed,
I'm gonna have to ask to be excused. I have a doctor's appointment.
stay healthy.
Thank you. Just flu shot.
Steven, so what are your thoughts, as far as moving ahead?
Yeah, no,
Can you look at it?
Alarms.
I'm watching you.
What are your thoughts on opening tickets or work orders or whatever? As we try to at least use the ones that are in existence, the uprights, as we try to knock off a punch list of places that are just begging to have one. So,
This will be a, I believe this would be a good time for placement. We could put them in work orders and get them set up in the system. So it'll probably be a week or two out with our guys prepping for Christmas stroll, some people going out for leave and whatnot with the holidays.
Yeah.
But I think this is the time to start looking at the locations and getting all that set up. I believe we can get that done within the next 30 days, unless the ground gets so cold we have issues, but I don't think that'll be an issue.
and we'll make sure that there's, more than one person that's aware of where this needs to go, and so that between the 6 of us, 7 of us, you'll have some company going up to do it.
That'd be
definitely,
great.
because
I'd want to do, and I'd probably coordinate with David Gray, grab his GPS. Do we have, will they be acting also as benchmarks? Like, do they belong in a specific area? Like it has to be a particular coordinate for the marker, or
No.
is not that particular?
Steve, I understand your question. I think we have marked an X on diagrams of the roads. After they're in place, yes, we will need Latin Lodge or coordinates. But no, it's not so specific. Our only concern is that we put them in the road right away. We put them in town land rather than private land. And
Oh,
that's usually fairly obvious.
no,
What
yeah.
we've done, Steve, what we've done in the past is we've put flags in the ground where they go, or where we want them. And one of us on the committee, I mean, I certainly would volunteer to go out with your crew and make sure that it gets in the right.
So maybe a week before, put some flags.
Yeah,
in
put the flags
Yeah.
in the ground and so on.
Well, yeah, and if that's the case, if you get the flags there, I can always make sure that we verify that they're in the legal right of way, and then make arrangements for somebody to come out there and take care of it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were pretty careful when we did the other ones because we know that fire hydrants and the telephone poles are always in the roadway. So we,
Yeah, we would still do dig safe. We would still have, I'd probably get a surveyor just to mark it, and make sure. Or I can get, because some of the records, they're so antiquated. It's just better to have a surveyor do it. We do the one-time thing, and once we put it in, no one's gonna move it for years. So I think it'll be worth the trouble.
Yeah. Thank you. So we'll goes along with that. And I should note at this time that we didn't skip over item 4 in the agenda, but Patrick Reed was unable to be here today, so we don't have an update on there, so that's why we skipped that part.
With that, sir, is there anything do you need me to do, a walkthrough of Stone Alley for, in preparation for the next meeting?
You probably want to do that so you're familiar with it. So that, we're gonna put it on the agenda, obviously, and, assuming that you're able to make it, it certainly would be well versed in, knowing what's, in front of you.
Steve, it's a suggestion, not a request. But significantly, if you're chatting with Ken Bogrand about implications for your organization, it'd be useful to have seen it. So just sometime when you're downtown, it's only a few yards away from Main Street.
No worries. We actually brought it up as part of our order of merit list for cobblestones as to whether or not we should be addressing it. So we actually had plans to do it, to walk it.
Okay,
The other thing with the monuments,
You didn't have some round, I think you rid of that language.
and that's for the committee. One of the things on our punch list was moving monuments at the West Chester Street extension and Crooked Lane. And the note at the time was need to coordinate with the land bank.
Right, and the reason for that is when we put those monuments in, both coming in from Wannacomet Road and up the Crooked Lane extension. We wanted to get them, how can I put this, past where the animal hospital is and then past where the houses are. So we put them in, there was some good reason why we had to do that.
at that time, our good colleague Harvey Young said, look, we don't need to put a billboard up, but we need for walkers to know that they're in the right place.
Exactly. So what's happened is that that section of the old road, that's it's not Crooked Lane.
It's
Westchester.
Westchester Extension. Westchester Extension is a public way, and the land bank owns the property on Wannacomet Road that goes over to Westchester, the extension. And so we're putting a trail or something in there. So that's why the reference to the land bank. That transfer hasn't taken place yet, but the land bank is going to get that section of road.
So does Wannacomet go back out to the Vatican Road? I just want to make sure, no.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Wannacomet is the next.
From Manicat Road to Cliff Road.
yeah,
Yeah,
Vatican
okay.
to Cliff, right.
Yeah.
So, and it's roughly halfway down there, but
So Steve, this is one of these uniquely Nantucket roads where the roadway does not follow the layout.
Okay. Are we talking at this, you said Westchester and Crooked Lane, so we're talking about the start of the animal hospital corner?
It's beyond.
yeah. it's
Going beyond, yeah, I've driven that. That is fun.
Well, you can't get through it. now, It's so far in.
Yeah.
Way back before the land got really flooded, I did drive the
Right.
entire length of Westchester up to Wannacomet, as did Harvey Young.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to try that now.
No.
And after last week.
Yeah, I walked it a couple of weeks ago and it was just,
You had a high center of gravity vehicle with knobby tires.
Yeah.
So
I'm
the
looking-
idea with those two posts is we're going to move them back out a bit. The whole idea is that there's a walking path and it connects into the Folger, the
The memorial.
yeah, for the Folger Memorial there. that was the homestead, by the way, of Peter Folger, who was one of the instrumental half showmen on.
All right,
All right.
so no other news on that until, the land bank squared away with its.
Right, exactly.
Okay, unless anybody has any more discussion on that, we'll move on to the next item. Lee?
I'm stealing thunder here. I want to move that this committee recommend Phil Smith for the position on the Harbor Plan Committee.
As an ad hoc,
I'd like.
at large, right?
Well,
I'd already thrown my application in.
I know, so it's.
I made the deadline. I actually put it in about over a week and a half.
It's on,
Really? Great.
it's on tomorrow night's
So
agenda.
is it up this Wednesday?
Yeah.
Well, I think they were acknowledging who has applied for these committees. And then it is December 7th. Wednesday, December 7th, that the candidates would be introducing themselves. Unfortunately, I have a dinner that I have to be in New York. It's something that's sort of honoring me, so I can't exactly say, while they're handing me something, oh, I have to take a call.
That would
So,
actually be add weight to your application if you had a Zoom with a live.
you know,
screen.
the Waldorf Astoria.
yeah, right.
Not exactly.
All very nice. But Erica will take a written statement from you
Exactly,
and either read it or give it to the members.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. I've been in that situation where, so I wrote a nice piece that.
Would we want to actually weigh in writing?
Yes, that's my motion.
Yeah, well, that's a good motion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have,
Rick just seconded.
I like that motion.
Just for an FYI, I said that, because they ask, as you know, they say, why are you interested, or what experience you have? And I said that I'm on the Roads Right of Way Committee, and that we are looking at beach access points and chapter 91. And that I believe chapter 91 may be something that they're going to consider in the harbor plan.
Absolutely.
If they don't, they maybe should.
Well, they were in the old harbor plan, our committee was cited in there as, we did, was it public access or I think it was.
Okay, the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee, which is where we were, and I was the liaison to that. And Carl Schuland was the liaison from, I think, at that time, Shellfish, back to us. He attended a number of our meetings. And Sarah Oaktai was chair of that committee, and she organized the recommendations in the harbor plan, which, while composed by the town, had been assisted by a consultant. And she organized them into 100+ action items, and then assigned responsibility. And of course, we got all the public access stuff.
I just as an addition, I also mentioned that for about 12 years now, I've been on the Nantucket Shellfish Association thing. So obviously been involved with the water quality, and then my involvement with community sailing. So I'm on the waters.
Not to mention.
so we have a motion with a second. We will do a roll call as custom for this type of meeting. Alan Reinhardt. Aye. Lee Saperstein.
Aye.
Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Bill Smith.
I guess I'd have to abstain.
No.
No. You vote for yourself,
Do
please.
you support yourself doing?
You voted for
Yeah,
yourself
I mean,
in town election.
what if you lose by one vote?
Nelson Eldridge.
I,
Ed Gillum, who had to leave, and Rob Rainey, who had to leave also, are not here any longer. And the chair votes yes, so unanimous by those present. Thank you for doing so.
So you'll write a letter to the select board recommending from Roads and Right of Way, but Bill would make a great candidate.
You know when Rob, do you know what time Rob?
Rob left at 4:45.
Well, it would be helpful And maybe we should, if this comes to pass, that, I could see an agenda item where we have it as sort of a standing item that, hey, what do we think about this? How do we want to, because I certainly don't want to be the only person speaking for this committee.
I think I heard you say, Phil, that as part of the committee comments or some subset of that, you would be reporting on the action of the harbor plan committee,
I think so.
and that if an opinion is required from you, you'd share it with us.
Absolutely.
I think that makes sense.
Alright, any new or old business? Anybody here? Any monkey business? No?
Thank you all.
Alright, that being said, Stephen, thank you for joining us.
Motion.
We have a motion to adjourn by Phil, second by Alan. And once again, Alan Reinhardt. Aye. Lee Saperstein. Aye. Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Bill Smith.
Aye.
Elton Eldridge. Aye. Bill Greeter. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, yes, December 20th.
Pretty close to
Yes, isn't it December?
the holidays.
Does anybody know what that high tone beep is?
I think it's an alarm on that door. The door isn't closed.
Yeah, the next meeting is scheduled for December 20th. Does anybody want to change that date?
Okay with me.
Not for me.
You're gonna be in London then?
London's not a problem, but entertaining my brother-in-law and other members on
And
December
that house full
20th
of kids.
for dinner. 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Well, if Phil can bring all his friends to the select board meeting, you could bring your brother-in-law to it. Anybody else have any issues with that? Okay.
If you do, make sure you record it.
Absolutely.
Do the minutes.
And just as an FYI, today's meeting, obviously, we're in room B at the trailer. There are more committees than there are rooms. And so one committee that thought they were meeting here today found out that they were doing Zoom only. So as we move into the winter time, if folks are on vacation or whatever, and if it works out that we just do Zoom only, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
All right. Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Our recording.